Excellent day, morning, night, depending on what time you're viewing this video. Dr. Harry Benjamin here, man. I'm fired up and I'm excited about life. Life is truly good. Underneath all the various experiences that we go through in life, life is really good. So life underneath all experiences is good. And we're here today to talk about another topic in the series of change. And the feedback has been wonderful. Keep it coming, guys. I've been having some great conversations with different people. Still talking to some people about the last series, happiness, and people are getting more insights and clarity. I'm really excited about what's going on. More people realizing the difference between emotions and our innate true feelings. So I'm very grateful that we are actually doing this, and more people are coming to a deeper realization of the qualities that we have that are innate within us. So this topic of change is to help us to really understand that dynamic of life, because life is truly simple. When we really understand life, we recognize that it's really simple. It's set up for us to really do well, to succeed, to prosper, and to reveal more of our glorious nature. So today we're going into the second aspect of change, as I promised, and that aspect deals with meaning. Last week we spoke in some depth about the continuity of life. And just to, recap that, life is continuous. It's us that breaks up life into periods, what that we would call lifetimes, or we may call them epochs. Sometimes we look at a period, and we spoke about different periods, and the current age that we call technological age is the age that we're living in. And that age, of course, is pretty exciting, compared to the previous ages that we had before. But underneath all of that, life is still there and has been and will continue to exist and continue to unfold and reveal more of its nature in different ways. So as life is going through its various changes and going through its various revelations, so to speak, to reveal different aspects of life, life changes in its pictures. Life changes in its forms. And it's the formations that are changing that we sometimes wrestle with. And human beings have a tendency to want things to remain the same, or they want to remain the same sometimes on their inside, but they want to see things on the outside change. And one of the things about life is that we're not separate from life. Life and us are one. And because we're not separate from life, as life is going through these changes, we are going through these changes with it. And it is our wrestling with these changes now and resisting of some of these changes that leads to what you call struggle or strife. Oftentimes, the other day I was speaking to one of my friends, and we were talking about struggle and strife. Because the struggle and strife is internal. It's something that we do to ourselves because we're the ones who are using thoughts about a particular circumstance or situation to describe it in a way that we do not like. I was speaking to, just earlier, speaking to another friend of mine, and he was telling me about Wayne Dyer and listening to 101 Ways of Improving Your Life. And, he was mentioning that Wayne Dyer had pointed that, nothing goes wrong in his life. And Dr. Wayne Dyer, for those who have maybe read his books, listened to any of his audios, and that's a very profound statement. Nothing ever goes wrong in your life. I was saying to one of my friends the other day as well, there's really only good news. Some of you might say, no. That's not true, right? Okay, let's look at it, right? And as we go into meaning today. We say that there's good news and there's bad news, right? But then at the same time, some of us buy into this particular statement that all things work together for good for those who love God and live according to the higher purpose, right? Let's analyze it. All things work together for good. It means that if something happens, it works together for good. If we're to accept that that is true. So it means, therefore, that when some news comes to you, if you call it bad, what's the point? Because all things work together for good. So therefore, calling something bad doesn't really have any real value, except that you will now experience that particular situation the way you named it. If you call it bad, then you're going to end up having a bad experience of it because you're the one who called it that way. You're the one who described it that way. So as we digress from that, let's look at meaning. Because meaning, it has been one of the areas where a lot of us grapple with, trying to find out what's the meaning of this? What's the meaning of that? Why did this happen? Why did that certain circumstance take place? And the three broad areas, because life is simple. And if we look at life, there's three general areas that we have to contend with. And those three areas is pretty much one, we have to deal with our physical person, our physical body, the changes that are happening there. The other area that we tend to have to deal with is our relationships. Some people are close, some people are some distance, but we have these relationships. And next thing that we have to deal with are the body of our affairs, whether it's business, finance, community, and they're different areas. So we tend to have to deal with life in these three different areas from an outside standpoint. So one, the physical body, and looking at trying to find out why does certain things happen. Well, the physical body is to be used for a duration of time. It's to be used. Most of us are told that we're given about 10. Some of us get longer than that right now. Some people are vying for 100, 120. I'm in that category. All right. I like to get above 100. Is what it is. So, so the body goes through these changes. The body goes through these changes, and as the body is going through these changes, if we're identified with the physical body and our sense of who we are is this physical person that you're looking at, or you're looking at your body, and that's your identity. And your identity is that small. What ends up happening now, the changes that the body go through, you feel like you're the one going through it. Now, as we mature, as we become more aware of the soul and the spirit as our identity, as we become more aware of that aspect of ourselves, then the sense of the changes that the body go through, we don't feel like we are the ones changing as much. We accept, and it's easier to accept, okay, so, the body came out as a small baby, it grew, become a little bigger, then it becomes an adult, it has certain relationships, and it will move on. Now, if we accept that process, that's what the process is, and then we're somewhat not removed from it, but we're not attached to it. We're not like feeling like this is happening to me and this is happening to me. So as you're going through these changes, as the body rather is going through these changes, the more that you have become more aware of your soul and your spirit as your identity, then these changes that are happening, they're going on, and you're observing them. So you become the observer of changes, and you're what's not changing, but observing what changes. And when you have matured into looking at life from that standpoint, it's easier to accept changes that are happening at the level of the body. Also, you tend to be less interfering, because then a sense of fear, anxiety associated with certain changes. Some people see a physical malady, happening in their body. And when those physical maladies happen, they're really feedback to tell us that there's something that's off within our alignment, within ourself. And then that dis-ease, it means that something is not at ease. And once we get things back in line and we are back at ease, then what we call dis-ease tends to disintegrate and disappear. Yes, sometimes you may need assistance from a hospital, a doctor. I happen to be one, historically speaking. So I'm not against using practical things that we may need to do. You have a knee, like I had a surgery. I added a ligament to my knee that broke. I had to get one from someone else. It was put into my knee, and now my knee's back. Right. So I'm not against using tools. Right. But of course, I also understand the importance of having a spiritual, mental, emotional, and a physical alignment of ourselves to be at ease, to avoid experiencing dis-ease. So the body goes through these changes. And the way to be able to mature out of it is to go into a practice that allows us to be able to become less identified with our physical body and gradually more identified with your soul and your spirit, until eventually you're so identified with your spirit that the changes that happen at the level of the body don't affect you as much, right? And you'll see them much easier. You tend to observe them, and you're not attached to them. And the changes that are inevitable, that happen over the course of what we call time, that floats through, you're not stuck there. The other area that we try to find meaning from, I try to understand why, our relationships, that's area, maybe I'll come back to that, because finances is easier. So I'll come back to relationships and do that one last. But finances, money coming up, money going down, businesses coming up, businesses failing. If we look at it, life progresses, right? Let's say you used to do a business and manufacturing cassettes, and you did well. I remember when I was coming up as a young individual, And on the cassettes, there's something called TDK. Right? I mean, some of you guys don't even remember what that is. I'm sure my videographer doesn't even know TDK. You do? Okay, so so TDK is a cassette, and some of us are familiar with it. But would you get into the business of selling cassettes today? I don't even think the TDK brand exists anymore. Right? So the thing is that life progresses, because today, I was speaking to a guy who is doing music. He's producing music. And I said, okay, do you have any CDs? And he smiled at me and says, no, he doesn't have any CDs. All of his music is on video, on MP3 stuff, and it's digital. All of his music is on Play Store and, not Play Store, iTunes and places like that. So he's producing music, but he's not making CDs anymore. All of his music is digital. And if you want to buy it, you can go on iTunes or listen to it on YouTube. Amazing. So we have to recognize then that life evolves, life moves on. And then if we're stuck, if mentally now you think, man, the only way I can make money is to sell cassettes, then you're resisting life. You're resisting progress. I'm using an extreme example, but we hold on in different ways to past ways of being. And we're trying to think, why is it changing? Or we're trying to get past ways of doing something back. I see it happen a lot in careers, where a lot of people who are educated in a particular field, let's say you got through university, you love mathematics, you went on, you did a first degree in mathematics, then you came out, you wanted to get a teaching role, it was maybe difficult. You got another teaching role, you got a master's in mathematics, so you could probably go and find somewhere to teach at a university, and you got a PhD. Finding a job to teach mathematics is difficult, right? Because, those roles are not as valuable as they used to be in the past. So a lot of times we hold on to past ways of being, and we're trying to force life now to cooperate with that. I remember going through that personally. I remember quite distinctly where we were losing our home in Florida. So we were going through what we call foreclosure. People in the U.S. understand what that is. And in the process of losing the home, I was trying to use affirmations and declarations. And I was trying to use everything possible to keep the home. In fact, my primary reason for doing spiritual study, my primary reason for finding God, was to try to save the house. I was really trying to get an awareness of myself. I was trying to save the house. And in the process of trying to hold on to that house, that's why I was doing spiritual study. That's why I was doing spiritual practice. So we oftentimes are trying to keep things the way they were, as opposed to accepting that life is changing. Life is trying to take you to somewhere better. And then, some people would say, man, you're losing your home. That was bad news. And I'll tell you today, man, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it opened me up. Right now I'm into an arena of life that I'm having so much joy and peace flowing through me. And if I was still holding on to physical things as a part of what I needed to be okay, it would have blocked and interfered with my ability to have an awareness of this. So letting go of these physical things, right, and allowing them to come into our experience, leave our experience without a sense of neediness, needing to have a particular home, a particular car. I'm not against having nice things. I love Rolls Royce, Ferrari, I'm that type of guy. But I no longer need to have those things. I no longer need the Maserati in my garage to be okay. All right? I used to be that kind of guy, because I was like that, in 2004 or 5 when I bought all of those cars and Maserati, BMW, Range Rover, all of that one time, trying to be okay. When I was already okay, I just didn't know that. And then as those things fell away from my hands, and I realized that they didn't make a difference in my inner state of being, gradually, because at first I was a little upset. I was like, why is this happening? Why is this going on? I was trying to understand the meaning of it. But now understanding that life is progressive, and sometimes life empties our hands to put bigger things in it. Sometimes we deliberately empty our hands, but sometimes life itself empties our hands, and we get to hold on to bigger things, because the smaller things at times are interfering with the bigger things that life is trying to bring into our life experience. So letting go of these physical things in our environment, right? Whether it's the business, not that you need to close your business. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying to stop building it for it to be extremely successful. That's not what I'm saying. But not be attached to it, so that if changes are happening and it needs to change, it needs to shift, it needs to go in a different direction. Cassettes are no longer selling. I no longer need to be in Florida. I need to be in Africa. So having a piece of real estate in Florida would have been a hamstring, or it would have been like a chain around my foot. Trying to deal with that while I'm trying to be here in this bigger sea, a bigger ocean, to do way more in terms of what I'm doing right now. So understanding that we need to be able to be pliable. We need to be more relaxed, to allow things to come into experience and leave, in terms of life. So life experiences and life should be different. Your life is life. It's continuous and it's eternal. The experiences change. Lifetimes are like chapters. So it's a chapter that you're going through, and you could be writing different pages in that particular chapter. And then each lifetime is your chapters. And life is continuous underneath all of that, right? And then life doesn't change. Life is changeless, but life experiences are in flux constantly. And if we identify ourselves with the experience, we will experience anxiety, we'll experience frustration, we'll experience regret, all of these different emotions that we have labeled because we're attached to experiences. So the other area that we try to find meaning from are relationships, right? And that's a very challenging one for us, because oftentimes relationships, when they come together, right, it's fun, it's exciting, in fact, when people are born into this world, there is a celebration. There's a christening. There is, even before we enter into this world, physically speaking, there's, baby showers and, different things that are all happening in terms of celebration, right? And as that celebration happens, and different birthdays and the weddings and, all the different anniversaries, graduation for some people, then, marriage, so there are celebratory points along the way in the journey. And then as the journey peaks, in terms of, and adulthood sets in, and there's a sense of responsibility, and then now the other side of the mountain comes, you start to go down the other side. And then now we start to see that loved ones start to leave for different reasons, relationships break up, and we start to try to grapple with, why is this happening? What's the meaning of this? And one of the biggest areas for us as human beings that we grapple with is when what we call, the world calls it losing loved ones. Right? That's one of the biggest areas of dealing with what's the meaning of this. Why is it that, grandma, why is it my wife, my husband, somebody, it is that transition from this planet. And I remember my own personal experience, before my biological mother. And let me say it this way, because, when we say mother, we don't understand the dynamic between, the difference between your biological parent and your true parent. Now, your true parent is spirit. All right, for those who have become aware of it. But those who are not yet aware of it and have a belief about it, because when you believe that your parent is spirit, you're using faith to accept that, which means that you don't have any real tangible evidence. You're hoping. Faith is the hope, right, and the evidence of what's not yet seen, right? So therefore, faith is what most people use to say, okay, someday, one day, I'm going to know my true sense of who I am. Someday, one day in the future, I'll know that my father is a spiritual father, right, in heaven. Someday, one day. As opposed to being able to know this right now. When you know it now, I don't mean having faith, because faith means you don't know. Faith means you're believing for something, right? You're trusting for something. When you know something, you no longer need faith. So faith is a stepping stone to knowing. When you know that your life is God's life and God's life is your life, when you know this, then when you see changes happening in terms of relationships, when people come, they hang around for a while on the planet and they leave, then you won't try to wrestle with it like, man, why did she have to go so soon? Or, and then a sense of delusion or, disillusion, comes about because you feel like, oh man, like my whole life fell apart. I've seen a lot of people go through this. And I can't really remember myself going through that in any deep way, because when my sister left, she left at age 31 in terms of leaving the planet. So I look on it as a transitioning. If you go back to certain great people like Shakespeare, he says people shuffle off the mortal coil. So people leave. We come, we leave, right? All of us, you watching me, you're going to leave soon at some point. so wrestling with that, what's the point, right? So where's the meaning? Life itself has its meaning. Life is its own meaning. And when we become less physically identified and we start to really go within, we start to do our meditation, we start to do our affirmative prayer, we start to do high-minded conversations, we start to do appropriate spiritual study so that we can shed light into areas of lack of understanding. So when it comes to meaning, what I encourage us to do is to seek understanding. Don't let things stay in the dark. Don't allow things to be a little, this conversation about life and what we call death. Let me avoid it. Because one of these topics, I'll maybe interview somebody about that, so that we can flesh out that, right? Because then that's an area that we've kept a little clouded, a little shrouded. A lot of us haven't really allowed ourselves to really look at it for what it is. And so what is it that's dying? What's living? What's life? Is life the opposite of death? Because from my perspective, death is not the opposite of life. Life is absolute. Death is just the opposite of birth. If something is born, it will die one day. All right? So anything that has a beginning will have an end. What's never had a beginning can never have an end. Identifying with that which is eternal is the escape from the temporary. All right? Going from what's temporal to what's timeless. And over time, as we continue these conversations, we will get to the essence of this. Meaning is pretty straightforward when you are ready to shine light in the areas that you don't understand. So if you don't understand the meaning of life and death, go investigate it, go study it, start reading about it, start to try to understand it. Because anything that you understand is no longer fearful. The things that stay in the dark become fearful because there's fear of what you don't know, fear of the unknown. Once you know it, no longer fearful. So therefore then, in all you're seeking, in all you're trying to get wisdom and understanding. Get wisdom and understanding. You're trying to get, a clarity about what this means, wisdom. You're trying to understand what is life? What is death? What is light? What is darkness? Understand it. Don't stay away from it. Don't stay in a closet. Don't say, man, that's a little, I don't want to delve there. That's not wisdom, right? What we should seek to do is to shine light in the areas that we are lacking understanding. Understanding and the word light is really the same. Because once light has come, you could see. And you understand. And anything that you understand, you can embrace. But if you keep things away and keep things, shrouded, then what happens now is that those areas now become, clouded to us. And we don't know what's going on there. And then we ask questions like, man, what's the meaning of this, man? Why did this have to happen? Why did grandma go? Why did my wife go? Why did my husband go? And then we're grappling with those things instead of seeking to understand life. And by understanding life, the meaning of life comes to us. So, man, I'm grateful. I'm excited. We'll continue to have these conversations going on so that we can understand that more clearly. But meaning of life, life itself has its own meaning within it, right? And it's the difference here is simple, right? But yet still it takes time for us to come to that level of deep understanding of it. It's simple. Life is life. Experiences are different. Those are the fluctuations and the vacillations of what happens in life. Next topic, my friends, that we're going to get into, so we've spoken about, before, we spoke about, last week was, okay, so, okay. So last week was the beginning of change. We spoke about the continuity of life, right? And today now, we spoke about the meaning of life. Our next topic that we're going to cover next week will be negotiating these structures. There are a number of structures in life that we need to be stable for our true sense of self to be able to live really well in this world. I will cover those structures and how to negotiate them, how to navigate our way through them. And then the last one in the series, we're going to talk about celebrating change, right? And we're going to talk about that, man. So I'm so grateful, so excited. It was my privilege chatting with you once again this week. And next week, man, we'll get into some more. God bless each and every one of you. We will see you at the top. You deserve to be there. Bye for now. For those of us who enjoyed this video, or even if you didn't fully enjoy it, but leave your comments, right? Please share it with friends, family, individuals that you'd like to actually learn about what we're talking about. And please subscribe to this channel as well. Our goal is to really help more of us as human beings on this planet rise and shine and reveal more of our inner peace, joy, and reveal more abundance. All right. So thank you for your comments. I'm looking forward to reading them. I'll seek to respond to them. I'm having a great time. I hope that you are. God bless you all.